It's a big day for the UK's next generation of fast jet pilots.
Confirm centrifuge enabled.
This is the first time they'll try flying at 6G inside the centrifuge. It's just one part of a crucial course where they learn how to make their bodies cope with flying fast jets, and quite simply, how to stay alive.
That's weird, isn't it?
Oh, that's horrid.
What does that feel? Yeah, absolutely.
Today, the new pilots are being tested in the centrifuge. The pass mark is simple. They must fly the plane and not pass out. First, they need to get suited up, so it's a visit to the centrifuge wardrobe for the kit that will help them deal with G-force.
First time in G trousers? First time in G trousers, yeah.
Yeah. Just like really tight jeans at the moment, but we'll see how it goes.
Once she's finally issued with trousers permanently, when she stops her fast jet training, she'll literally just come on, put them on, zip up and go. So we won't have all this adjusting business normally, so it's purely for here.
Yeah, that's good.
Just point this at you, so everyone goes in with sitters bags, and so the best place to store them is in these front two pockets here.
First up in the centrifuge is Flying Officer Callum.
Chamber clear, door closed. Start centrifuge.
Started.
Okay, Callum, so that's you spinning at 1.6G, and that's going to be your new normal for the next few minutes. Ready to go? Okay, you have control.
Cheek wheel in 3, 2, 1, go.
G-force is simply a way to measure rapid acceleration or deceleration. Today, each new pilot is being exposed to 6G for 15 seconds. That's the maximum G they will experience in a Texan, the next aircraft they'll be trained on. For a Hawk, they'll go to 7G. For a Typhoon and F-35, they'll need to go to 9G and be issued with different flying suits.
I can see that 5 seconds in, you started your muscle tensing. Can you tell me what happened there?
When the body undergoes G, blood rushes to the feet, depriving, most crucially, the heart and brain of oxygen. This would cause the new pilots to pass out pretty quickly, so they must learn how to prevent it. There are a number of things that will help them, and one is the anti-G straining manoeuvre.
So the muscle tensing that they use is actually 70% of the battle won already against G. But it's a technique that has to be learned to do, because that's not how the human body works. So in real life, basically, if you contract your biceps, your triceps relaxes, so the muscle groups work in opposition. What we teach them to do is curl the toes, that engages the calf muscles. They can press the rudder pedals as hard as they like, and that engages the thighs. Imagining a beach ball between your knees that you're trying to squeeze the air out of, that engages your quads and your hamstrings. My favorite one, which is imagining a walnut up your ass that you're trying to crack open, that engages the glutes. They're a big muscle group that we mustn't forget about. And imagining that someone is punching in your stomach and you clenching the abdomen. And it's all of that together in one go. Okay, so we don't work like that. So it is a technique that you have to learn to do. So that is only one half of the anti-G straining maneuver. The other aspects is what we call the breathing straining. In medicine, it's called a Valsalva maneuver. That actually we all do. If we ever constipated in the toilet and we're straining, that is exactly what we're doing.
Pressurising the chest squeezes the heart and the big vessels, pushing the blood up to the brain where it's needed. But this can only be done safely under G, so the pilots must practice in the centrifuge.
If you do that at ground level, which is what sometimes happens if you're constipated in the toilet, is that sudden increase in heart level blood pressure the brain hates. And we automatically respond to that increase in heart level blood pressure by dropping your blood pressure and your pulse, and that's when you feel giddy, you feel lightheaded, and you can frankly pass out. And the breath strain was absolutely spot on. When I don't step in, it's because I've got nothing to say, because you're doing it really well. By far the most common feedback is that people are breathing too fast. And when that happens, we end up hyperventilating. That lowers your G tolerance, and you can pass out if you keep breathing too fast. So it's a very weird technique that you have to learn to do, but that's what you need if you are going to pull G. Well done. That's you done for today, Callum. Okay, close your eyes. We'll bring you down to a stop. Select normal stop.
Is it tiring? It is, yeah. I mean, you're sat there, you're working at maximal effort, trying to make sure you're adhering to these and the correct techniques.
It's like being on a roller coaster or something. So instead of weighing what you expect to, you'll then double, triple, up to 6 times the amount as you normally weigh today. So and moving around, moving your head, lifting your arm just becomes so much harder than it usually is.
The tensing and breathing techniques are complemented by the G trousers, which contain inflatable bladders to assist in squeezing the blood from the legs.
It's actually a very tough game.
In the room upstairs, they watch each other in action.
Oh, look at him. You look the part.
You do actually look far.
Yeah.
You look I just felt sweat dripping down my thigh.
As a kid, it's always been something I've wanted to do. Growing up, I went to air shows and stuff, and my parents took me around and just saw it and thought, I'll give that a shot, and I was very, very lucky.
Seeing our friends in the video in the Centrifuge, of them all geared up, you think, oh, they look like a real pilot. I love flying. There's just nothing quite like it for me. I think the experience of, it's almost like a freedom being in the air. As it's very difficult to describe, I think, if anyone hasn't experienced it, but being in light aircraft and flying around, the sense of freedom, I love it.
I've actually very little doubt that it's
Back at RAF Henlow, and the student pilots have an intense schedule to get through.
Hold it in front of your nose and close your left eye.
Medical officer instructor Dr. Ollie Bird has been teaching pilots for well over 2 decades.
Slowly bring that piece of paper towards the tip of your nose, and at about 25 centimetres, slowly, 25 centimetres, the circle should disappear. We are a ground-based species, and our senses really aren't adapted at all well for interpreting the motion or force environments experienced in aircraft. So it's really important that they appreciate some of the visual limitations of their physiology. As far as our senses are concerned, and we have more than the 5 traditional senses, 80% of our sense of orientation is provided by our eyes, 19% of the remainder provided by our inner ears, 1% by the seat of our pants. So the seat of the pants are so called because we live in an environment where we have a consistent sort of gravitational force of attraction, and that's experienced through the seat of our pants. But the seat of the pants are limb and joint position sensors, heat and cold sensors, pain sensors all over the body that allow us to determine our position in space. And of course in aircraft, the aircraft vertical can often depart the earth vertical, giving pilots a false sense of upright. And all these senses can be very badly confused in the aviation environment.
The students must appreciate the limitations of their senses, and to prove to them that things are not always as they seem, the instructors put them inside something called the D-zone.
So at the moment the diesel is rotating about 5 RPM, so we're sort of moving about the speed of a kiddie's roundabout in a playground, okay? But you don't feel any of that sense of motion because you become accustomed to it. We're no longer accelerating, so it's moving at a constant speed. So your semicircular canals have equilibrated, they're not picking up that motion. But if we start doing head movements, and what we do is we bring different semicircular canals into the plane of motion, and that can give us these false senses of motion. What I'd like you to do, let's just pretend you've dropped something on the ground.
Yep.
And I'd like you to just put your chin down to your chest gently to look between your knees.
Oh, that's horrid.
What does that feel? Okay. Yeah. What did that feel like when you did that?
So you just become very aware of the turning motion.
What's happening here?
Yeah, okay, so the vis is going, oh wow, okay.
How does that feel?
Not very fun.
Yeah, it's awful, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're trying to mess with them, aren't you?
Yes. Well, we're trying not to catch them out, but we are deliberately trying to demonstrate that their orientation system that's sort of designed for use on the ground is not as reliable in the air environment. So we're trying to demonstrate that at times that will fool them and give them some wrong information. And just to demonstrate how that works and how they try and cope with that and how they manage with that.
So whenever we asked you to roll out, what we did there was just stop the DSO. So you've been sitting facing stationary in the same direction for the last 15 or 20 seconds, but you got a very strong sense you were yawing to the left.
Yeah.
You can see from your instruments that you were straight and level,
Yeah.
but your ears were telling you, your vestibular system was telling you were in a yaw to the left. So what's actually happening there, as you come out of a persistent right hand rotation, a right turn, and level off, the inertia of the fluid in the semicircular canals is sensed as though you're spinning the other direction. So you get that deceleration of the fluid, so you can get this false sense of motion again. So semicircular canals are not very reliable in the aviation environment.
We demonstrate a thing called the Coriolis effect, which is to do with the confusion that the vestibular system gets into. So your internal gyros can be confused whenever you're in a gradual turn in an aircraft and you start to move your head around. That give you all very unusual senses of motion. Very often people can feel that they're pitching or rolling or tumbling.
Okay, for you the war is over. Let's see where we are. Good stuff.
So gents, what do you think your learning points from that are? What if you...
Don't trust your instincts.
Yeah, absolutely.
An illusion is still an illusion even though you know it's happening.
Now that they know not to trust the senses they've been relying on all their lives, it's time for the students to go flying again, while still remaining very much on the ground. The RAF Centre of Aerospace Medicine is home to a series of altitude chambers used to recreate the effect of high altitude and decompression on the human body.
So why are you here and what are we going to do with you?
Today they're going to simulate the kind of rapid decompression that might occur if a door blew out of the aircraft.
We're going to rely on one of two hand signals. It's a thumbs up to confirm that you've understood me and have no questions. It's a thumbs down if you have a question or a problem, at which point I'll ask you to turn your mic switch on and describe it to one of us. You also might notice a little bit of gut gas expansion. Gas about, let it out. So if it's the top, just vent with a burp. If it's at the bottom, do the same with a fart.
We climb to a base altitude of 2,000 feet and then quickly decompress them to an altitude of 12,000 feet in just 3 seconds. That leads to pressure changes in their bodies, such as gut gas expansion and even in their middle ears. And they'll also experience those physical changes of noise, mistiness and a drop in temperature in the chamber before finally we return to ground level, which gives them an opportunity to try some of those techniques for clearing their ears to make sure that they don't get any ear or facial pain when flying.
Individual comms check. Checked and operating. Connection checks. Checked and firm. Climb to 2,000 feet at 2,000 feet per minute. Chamber altitude 2,000 feet. Students confirm with a clear thumbs up that you're ready for rapid decompression. 6 thumbs plus Chang, rest your thumbs. Students, stand by for rapid decompression in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, now. So this is the bit of the chamber run where we need you to do some work for us by clearing your ears as often as you feel you need to. Remember to be conscientious about clearing your ears all the way down to the ground where the atmosphere is getting thicker and thicker.
Techniques for clearing their ears might be pinching their nose and gently blowing against that resistance, yawning, chewing or swallowing in the air to help air move from their noses and throats into their middle ear to keep that pressure balanced on the descent.
Okay guys, if you follow me.
If something were to go seriously wrong with their aircraft, the pilots need to give themselves the best chance of getting the plane down safely.
What you are about to experience is called pressure breathing for altitude. In the unlikely event of a rapid decompression at 40,000 feet of altitude or above, not even 100% oxygen will be enough to keep you conscious or alive for long enough to be able to make that mayday call and execute that emergency descent. So what the pressure breathing for altitude system does is it gives you 100% oxygen but under pressure. Okay, thumbs up if you can hear me.
Pressure breathing is an emergency oxygen system designed to keep the pilots conscious for long enough to make a mayday call and land the plane. It's an uncomfortable and unnatural way to breathe, where the breathing cycle is essentially reversed. Normally, breathing in is an active process. We do it intentionally, and breathing out is passive. It just happens. With pressure breathing, the air is forced in, so that becomes passive, and the pilots then have to make a conscious effort to empty their lungs.
Good, masks on, please. And pressure is coming on in 3, 2, 1, now. You don't want to find out how this works when you have the emergency.
Mayday.
You don't have a lot of time. You can't stay on that amount of pressure for very long without collapsing.
Mayday. Flying officer, bar turns. Mayday, flying off to Ginjal.
It is difficult because you can only speak when you are breathing out. There's no way you can speak when the system is pushing the air in. You find it very difficult. So that's why we always brief them beforehand, always try to speak when you're trying to breathe out. It is difficult, but it's not impossible.
Fantastic. Okay. Pressure's coming off in 3, 2, 1, now.
You've done it really well, because I definitely understood what you were saying, and you can see that it is important, because otherwise ATC is going to go, what is this man talking about, or woman?
It does literally feel like you're having a bunch of air shoved in your face, and initially that's quite, it's quite a strange experience, because it's almost the reverse. You normally have to put effort to take in air.
It's like you're blowing up a balloon, but you can't do it and the air's coming back out, and so you can't get your words out. It's very difficult. You need to force them out. It's really uncomfortable. Yeah, you would not want to be doing that for a long time. No. So it's good we now know what that feels like, so that you would be able to react appropriately and not be overwhelmed.
Sometimes decompression of an aircraft is less sudden, less dramatic, less noticeable. A crack in the structure of a jet, for example, may go unseen, but ultimately results in the cabin decompressing and the aircrew going quietly hypoxic. Hypoxia is when not enough oxygen is reaching the parts of the body that need it. Eventually it results in a person drifting off to sleep, and when it happens to pilots, it can end in tragedy.
No, usually when we've got a lot of mountains here, we've got you somewhere in the Alps or the Dolomites or something like that.
Unfortunately, once in a while you do get a situation where a plane does decompress, meaning that all the pressure in the plane gets vented out, and then the occupants are exposed to whatever the altitude that they're flying at is, so 30,000, 40,000 feet higher than we're able to survive at, and people will gently fall asleep. It will fly along on autopilot until fuel is gone, and once it runs out of fuel, the plane tends to crash wherever it crashes, but by that point the occupants were asleep long ago, and it's an infrequent occurrence, but it still does happen. We still do see it in the news, and this is why we teach people how to protect themselves against that.
The students must learn what it feels like to go hypoxic, so they know to reach for oxygen and hopefully remain conscious long enough to land the plane.
We're going to take you to 25,000 feet over about 3 minutes here. Again, we are trying to simulate a very slow decompression here, kind of to simulate what's probably more likely. You're more likely to have like a cracked door or a cracked canopy than losing it entirely, and so it's hopefully something where symptoms are going to sneak up on you.
Everyone experiences symptoms differently, and it can change throughout a person's life. The students will return here in 5 years' time to be made hypoxic once again.
It can be anything from tunnel vision, visual changes, difficulty catching your breath, tingling of the fingers, the hands, the face, anything like that. You can get a headache, flushing of the face, feeling nauseous. You can get what we call cyanosis, which is the kind of blueness in your fingertips and in your lips as the oxygen leaves your blood. It kind of goes from turning reddish to turning bluish, and so that's cyanosis. You can kind of see it through the skin. And then there's a whole laundry list of other possibilities. Those are just some of the most common ones.
And how are you feeling so far? A little bit of breathlessness. Okay. No, and again, like what we care about is just what you're feeling, whether or not it's in your head or not. So your heart rate's up a little bit from what it was at the beginning, and maybe I can definitely see you taking deeper breaths.
There's certainly some tingling in my hands now.
Okay. Give me a climb to 10,000 feet, and give me a left turn to a heading of 090.
Sometimes people will come in here and you've got a lot of young, strong, competitive people, and when they get in here, they say, the guy next to me just got down to 70% oxygen saturation, and then they hit the button, and I want to get down to 65, or I want to get down to 59%. Let's try and outdo the guy next to me. And if you do that, this is how airplanes crash. And so I tell every one of them, definitely not a competition. We just want you to feel some symptoms, say, okay, I understand. This is the time when I need to go on my oxygen. This is the time when I need to descend my aircraft, and troubleshoot from there. And this is not, well, if I can get down to 50%, then yeah, I'm great. That's not the way that it works.
Okay, and if you thought the symptoms that you're having now, so the tingling and the breathlessness, if you thought that those were hypoxia, what would you do to solve the problem?
I would go 100% oxygen and climb down to 10,000 feet.
Okay, why don't we do that? Oxygen's coming on.
All right, so is that what you expected, first of all?
No, not at all. I thought it was going to be kind of, I've been at altitude climbing and things before, so I was expecting like a headache, something like that. I think the first thing I felt was definitely the breathlessness, and then I realised that probably wasn't me just imagining it. And then as soon as my limbs started going fuzzy, I was like, okay, this is probably...
When I asked you to do the climb, I asked you to do a climbing turn, change your heading.
Yeah.
You did the climbing turn, just hung out, didn't do the turn, and I was like, okay, he's not quite at 100%, not quite doing everything that we're asking him to do.
I didn't realise after the climb, I was like, I swear he said do a turn as well.
Yeah,
I was
exactly.
like, must have missed it.
And you just kind of lose processing power. It kind of degrades a little bit, and it can creep up on you very slowly until you're just like, because my hypoxic symptoms historically have just been that. Just kind of just being off on another planet, needing to get like refocused a few times until eventually I do what I need to do. But sometimes that's enough. Sometimes that's enough to make the difference between saving the aircraft and yourself and not.
Sure. How was yours?
I didn't notice it. I didn't get it.
Really?
No.
It's nice to know that oxygen is just it's just an optional extra. Yeah, it was fine. So I started being a bit breathless, but I didn't know if that was just because being in a mask and things like that. And then I realised like all my limbs had been fuzzy.
Really?
Yeah.
It was a bit of a strange one because like I was doing stuff and I didn't even realise it. I started breathing quite heavily and I didn't even notice it, even though I knew that I was hooked up to the test rig and I knew that I was going to be hypoxic at some stage.
First person, please.
Anthropometry is the science of body measurements, and these numbers are critical. First up to be measured is Luke.
If you can leave your long johns, socks, t-shirt on, but if you can just hang your flying suit up.
Pilots need to not only fit in the cockpit and reach everything they need to operate the jet, they must also be the right proportions to eject out of it, and even the right weight to trigger the ejector seat. Each aircraft has its own limitations, and each pilot must fit within them to be able to fly.
Make sure your back is pressed right up against it. The sitting height of 908. Take your left hand and just make the OK symbol with it, right out in front of you, and then make sure that your shoulder is pressed back till you hear a click.
So Hawks, Texans, for prefect, we need to remeasure 668.
When the measurements are close to the thresholds, they are remeasured by somebody else.
Buttock to knee, buttock to knee.
If outside of normal limits, they then carry out an assessment inside the cockpit. Quite simply though, how important is it?
So I suppose it's important because it measures whether these people can safely fit within the cockpit and also operate the aircraft, and then if there was any ejections or anything needed.
Realistically speaking, how willing are you to eject from an aircraft and just lose about a centimetre off the front of your knee?
Probably not that willing.
Not so much.
We just need to get him back then, and
yes,
we need to remeasure that one.
Yep.
621.
The pilots will be remeasured each time they change aircraft and at points throughout their careers as their bodies change. For now, though, their time here at the Centre of Aerospace Medicine is complete, and they look to the next stage of their journey towards becoming the country's next fast jet pilots.
I'm really looking forward to the next steps. So the next course is the fast jet lead-in, staying here on the same aircraft, the prefect that I'm already familiar with, and I'm doing it at the same place with the same instructors. So it's a very good environment to be learning in and doing more exciting stuff.
It's going to be really exciting to see how things pan out, and yeah, it's just exciting to be in something a little bit faster and learn more. Ultimately, to me, Typhoon would be the dream aircraft to fly, but to be honest with you, both Typhoon and F-35 would be incredible, and I'm just really, really lucky to be in the position I'm in.
Thanks for watching. For more from BFBS Forces News, like and subscribe to our channel.